Hello, this is OverlordBou, and we're back with SAT score, and today we're going to be talking about the recommended lines that we have for beginners. So we're talking about destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and CVs. So for our DD tech tree lines we'd recommend is the USA DD line that goes down to the gearing. Now, the line I've played up to the tier 5, but all the way down to the tier 10 is the gearing. I find the gearing to be one of the all-around DDs. It has okay-ish guns, okay-ish torps, a great concealment, a very good trainer if you're just starting off in the DD world. Very good to start off on that. Do you have any more detailed input you want to put on the USA line there, SAT?
So for the US destroyer line, you can kind of divide them into two phases. So the first one is from Samson to Farragut. They rely a bit heavier on guns. Their torpedoes don't have that stealth fire capability just yet. So at this point, it'll teach you how to maximize your smoke and how to get the best use out of your guns. The guns are consistent all the way from Nicholas to gearing. So you want to get used to those ballistics. Starting from the Mahan, tier 7, you get access to stealth torpedoes, so you can fire torpedoes from outside your stealth range. And that will be very helpful, especially at the higher tiers. While you still have the long duration smoke, you need to be more picky on how you choose your gunfights. Overall, the line I feel like it's a good fit because the line doesn't have any particularly weird gimmicks. It's just longer smoke and fast-firing guns. So a lot of the skills you'll learn playing the US destroyers can easily translate to other lines.
Yes. So the second line we would recommend would be the UK British DD line that goes down to the Daring. Now, I played up to the Jarvis, and I have enjoyed my gameplay of this DD line. I just stopped because I haven't really felt like grinding any lines currently, so that's my own personal opinion on that. But the Daring is a wonderful trainer, and it has a great heal, really quick smoke, and wonderful best guns, very, very good, and also amazing heal as well. I'll let SAT score explain more. He's better than that than me.
So compared to the US line, the Royal Navy it's also an interesting starter line, but for different reasons. So they get short duration smokes and defensive hydro. So they're a lot more forgiving for smoke usage, and they also can dodge torpedoes much more easily. They have relatively short range guns and somewhat okay, average to mediocre torpedoes. They tend to rely more on guns, especially since they're very effective against other destroyers. The Jutland and Daring also get access to heals, but they're a bit weaker than most other heals. Overall, although the line has a bit more gimmicks, I still consider them a very solid beginner line because they're effective against other destroyers, and they have a lot of defensive tools that will keep you alive.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. So, on to the cruisers. So for the cruisers we would recommend would be, as a starter, would be the USSR cruiser line, both the light and the heavy line. They're both great lines. I had fun playing this line all the way down. From the Kavasky, all the way down to the Bunioy, the Savannah, they are all amazing ships. I loved every single one of them. The Shores, Chappie, Donskoy, Nevesky, all wonderful ships. The Talon, Riga, and Petro. The Talon, Riga teach you to start on how to play the Petro. They're all amazing ships. The Talon, Riga, and Petra have the improved pen angles and a stronger pen with that, and it's just, they're super, super strong. You play the Petra more like a battleship than a cruiser. It's kind of funny, actually. And the light cruisers, it more teaches you on how to start kiting. So with these two separate lines here, it helps teach you to play the different lines down the road in different nations. How would you explain these two lines, SAT?
So you can think of it as a 2-for-1 deal. So the initial line from Norvik, Tier 2 Norvik to Tier 7 Shores is a light cruiser line. So you play it at range, you learn how to kite, and you learn how to angle properly, otherwise you'll take citadels and explode. They do have very good firepower for their tier, and very relatively flat arcs, so their ballistics are very favorable for newer players still learning how to aim. When you get up to the split at tier 8, then they split into a heavy cruiser and a light cruiser line. Both of these offer vastly different playstyles. One continues on with the light cruiser playstyle, where you're kiting at range and just trying with some excellent ballistics. But on top of this, you start getting access to radar. That radar is 12 kilometers, fairly easy to use, and with your good ballistics, you can nail destroyers even at your max radar range. So with Champiev, Donskoy, and Nevsky, they start to become kiting cruisers, but when you get to Nevsky, it starts to be more of a jack-of-all-trades cruiser. You can perform well at almost all ranges, have access to defensive torpedoes, and your radar can take on any destroyer that you fight. So they may not excel in every situation, but they can be effective in any situation. On the other side, you have the tanky heavy cruiser line and Talon for some weird reason. Talon isn't a good representation of the line, so I'll skip ahead to Riga and Petropavlov. They are very well known for their tanking durability and are sometimes considered like very close to a battleship kind of playstyle, considering their durability. Riga and Petro will especially teach you how to angle and how to take powerful positions, because they don't rely on firepower as much as the other cruisers, but instead use their durability to take forward positions so you can exert influence on the map that way. No matter which line you choose, both of these will teach you some very important skills you need to master in order to play the cruisers effectively.
Alright, so for the next one, so the next starter we recommend would be the German cruiser line, which would be the Hindenburg. So the Hindenburg line is known for their tankiness down at the rune in the Hindenburg with good HE pen. So at the Cohen, but my time throughout all of here, I had a little trouble at the start because this was one of my first cruiser lines. But once I got down to the Hipper, Rune, and Hindenburg, it was smooth sailing for me, super easy to get used to. I love playing the Hindenburg with its spotter plane build. It's very, very, very fun for me. I love playing it. It's one of my favorite ships currently. I just love playing. It's one of my favorites. It's so much fun. I really do enjoy it. Do you have any detailed information about this line?
So similar to the other lines, you can split it into two different eras. From Tier 2 Dresden to Tier 6 Nuremberg, the cruisers are somewhat squishy, with Kongsberg and Nuremberg being very notorious for exploding. This all changes when you start with the Tier 7 Yorick. From there on, the cruiser citadels are pretty well protected, so they'll take a lot of damage if they show broadside, but they generally don't take too many citadel hits. That's one of the reasons why I think this line is solid for beginners, just because you get that durability, which is especially important at higher tiers. Unique to the German cruisers, you also get one quarter pen, which allows you to deal effective damage against most armors. So like, for example, most battleships at Tier 8 to Tier 10 will carry 32mm bow and end. Many battleships will carry somewhere between 38 and 50mm of deck armor. So with heavy cruiser HE, you can pen up to 50mm of deck armor, which allows you to continuously deal reliable damage against some of the battleships you'll encounter. I didn't mention this before, but another reason why the lines are recommended is because they also have powerful tech premium ships that allows you to retrain the captains and also kind of help you master their playstyle. So for the Germans, you can play the mains. The mains is considered a powerful... The mains are the Prinz Eugen. Prinz Eugen plays pretty similar to Hipper, and mains is considered a very powerful German light cruiser.
Very good. So, for the battleships, we would recommend the USA and the USA Montana line and the French Republic line. So we'll talk about the Montana line first. So this was the second battleship line I went down. Actually, no, it was the third. It was the third. And I wish that this line was the line I went down first, because the Montana is well known for the jack of all trade of the battleships, and I really enjoy this ship because it is really good at punishing broadsides. It is really good at doing that. So I'd highly recommend the Montana as a first battleship to get, due to the fact that it is a jack of all trades. And it can do well at long distances and mid-range, along with the fact it has a great heal and also has okay-ish anti-air. Overall, it's just a really good ship, and it punishes anything that shows its broadside to it. I'll let SAT score go into more detail.
Bo pretty much covered all the important parts. So the US battleship line can be split into 3 sections here. From South Carolina to Colorado, it's the standard battleship line. Everyone goes at about 21 knots. And then Tier 8 is when it splits. Historically, the US went with faster battleships, the North Carolina to Montana, while the Kansas to Vermont line represents if the US remained with the standard battleship concept. So the reason why we went with the North Carolina to Montana is because they're a lot more versatile, and the newer players will especially appreciate the fact that they can throw the North Carolina, Iowa, Montana into just about any battle and have some way of dealing with the situation. There isn't a particularly bad vice for any of those ships, so they're also a lot more forgiving in that regard.
Exactly. So the French line is the Republic. I haven't played down to the Republic yet, so I'm gonna let SAT score talk about it since I don't have much opinion on this line. I do apologize, bro.
The French line, again, I'll split it into kind of 2 eras. You get the Tier 3 Turin to Tier 7 Lyon. So these battleships, the French likes putting more guns on these battleships, and you'll especially see this with the Lyon having 16 guns. They tend to be a little bit more armored than other ships, with more guns but lower caliber. They kind of play what you would expect from a battleship. Nothing too special just yet. The interesting difference is when you start the Richelieu and goes down to Republic. That's when the French battleships start focusing on speed. And the reason why I would recommend this as a beginner is because all too often I see a lot of people, they play battleships, but they don't have an understanding of how to position, especially if you've been playing the US line and been stuck with 21 knot Colorados. So the Richelieu on up will allow you to position a lot faster. They're much faster top speed, and their weak armor kind of encourages a player to use positioning as a means of mitigating damage, as opposed to just straight up armor. The Republic especially is an interesting ship because you go very fast, but you don't have very strong armor, so you have to be careful on where you position. The guns will also reward you if you play your positioning game correctly. Although that being said, besides the US line, you can make a good case for every other battleship line being a starter. The battleships in general are pretty forgiving, so you can go down the French line if you especially want to focus on your positioning. If you can go down the Germans if you love meme secondaries. You can even go down the Russians if you want to understand when to be aggressive. But speaking of that, I believe the Italian battleships are the next battleship line to be released.
Oh, right.
So what do you think of them?
So the Italian line is not officially out yet. It is currently in the early access where people can pay to play it. So the most that it's currently out is the Lepanto. I feel like the Lepanto, the whole Italian line, is going to bring in a new era of battleships where you're able to move up, and if you feel like you've gone too far, you're able to smoke up and then kite away using the smoke. I can't speak on the tier 10 yet due to the fact it's NDA, but up from the tier 4 through the tier 9, I feel like the best ship so far is the Lepanto. I love this ship. It is so much fun. The SAP is so good, and a lot of people currently are underestimating these lines, and I feel like this is going to bring in a whole new era, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know if this ship will be a beginner ship, but it'll definitely be a gimmicky line, which will bring a lot of fun and a lot of memes. So for the final line we'll recommend is for the CVs, because we went over the DDs, we went over the cruisers, we went over the battleships, and now we're going to go over the CVs. So since there isn't that many CV lines, the only set CV line we're going to recommend is the Midway. I personally don't play CVs that much anymore because I personally don't enjoy playing CVs. I played up to the Lexington. I didn't have a problem playing this at all. The Midway's planes are the jack of all trade, where they're right in the middle. They're not too tanky, but they're also not too fast. They're right in the middle of the speed and the tank. So I'll let SAT Score explain the rest.
You've just covered many of the reasons why I recommend the US. Compared to some of the other lines, the Germans are heavy gimmicky on AP, which has a very high skill floor. The Japanese has AP bombs and focuses a lot on torpedoes. And the British have carpet bombing dive bombers and are focused more on damage over time. I find that the US carriers are the most consistent, very effective, and the most versatile of all of the lines. Because there isn't a ship where none of the ordnance are ineffective. Like, you can hit destroyers no problem with 2 of your 3 ordnances. Your torpedoes are effective against almost every ship in the game. The bombs they may not hit as hard as AP bombs, but they're not limited by RNG. So for a beginner player, you don't have to worry about mastering the techniques of dropping the bombs, but you can instead focus on how to dodge AA, how to position your CV, and what kind of planes you need to strike which target. And then once you've mastered those, you can move on to play, say, the Japanese or the Germans, where they play more specialized roles and require a better understanding of how CVs work.
So those are the beginning lines for the DDs, the cruisers, the battleships, and CVs that we recommend for beginner players that are looking for a starter line to start for their favorite class that they enjoy. Is there anything else you want to add, SAT Score? Like anything about the premiums or anything?
Yeah, as I said, some of the reason why I recommended those lines is because they have access to premium ships that play pretty similar to them and can cross-train captains, making your grind a bit easier. Although I do recommend those lines, these are not definitive, and there is nothing stopping you from playing any line you wish in the game. If you choose so, I would recommend going up to about tier 5. That will get you a decent idea of how the line will work at the later tiers. So most importantly, don't be compelled to play only the lines I recommend. Just find what you like the most and go ahead and play that.
Yep, remember, as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. We just recommend the lines that are suited best for beginners. But that's all we have time today. If you have any questions or concerns down below, definitely make sure to leave a comment. Make sure to like the video, and we'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like and leave a comment down below. I always love reading your guys' comments. It's greatly appreciated.